Huge failure upon release, and it's unfortunate because I think it's one of Burton's best movies. But he decided to make this after his screenwriter friend Jonathan Gems found the original trading cards that this movie was based on. For those of you who don't know, this movie was based on a series of Topps trading cards from the 60s. They're gory, they're gruesome, and they were marketed for kids, which shows you how different things were back then. But they found these trading cards, Warner Brothers agreed with the project, they were excited to go, and when Jonathan Gems turned in his screenplay, the estimated budget was $250 million. And Warner Brothers said, no, we're not doing that. 12 rewrites later, they got the budget down to roughly $70 to $75 million, and that's when Warner Brothers said, okay, do it. One of the big issues with this movie was Warner Brothers didn't really know how to market it, audiences weren't really sure what to make of it, critics weren't really sure what to make of it, and then in the summer of 1996, this little independent movie came out called Independence Day. I don't know if you've heard of this movie. Will Smith, he's an up-and-coming actor. That movie came out, did gangbusters. Everybody loved Independence Day. And Warner Brothers saw what they were doing with Mars Attacks, compared that to Independence Day, and said, maybe we have some competition here. Maybe we should bump up Mars Attacks. So this movie that was supposed to be released in 1997 got its, basically its production schedule shortened significantly so that it could be rushed and released for Christmas of 1996. For those of you who haven't seen this movie, this is not a Christmas movie. The skeletons turn red and green when they get zapped, but that's about as holiday as you get. But Warner Brothers insisted we gotta get this movie out. So a lot of the stuff that Tim Burton wanted to do for this picture, he didn't get to. The biggest thing being the Martians in this movie were supposed to be stop motion animation. If you know Tim Burton, you know he loves stop motion animation. But he had no choice but to make them CGI in this film. They were supposed to be a love letter to Ray Harryhausen. Didn't quite work that way. So, with the budget being cut, the shooting schedule being cut, this movie kind of got rushed out, kind of got just thrown into theaters and forgotten. But over time, like other projects like Nightmare Before Christmas and Wood, it found its audience. And I think that you guys are a testament to that because it's been 18 years and we have over 100 people here to see Mars Attacks of all movies. So I think regardless of how Warner Brothers may have treated the film, we're all here to watch it, celebrate it, and have a good time with it. So that being said, these things in our pockets, these little informational devices, turn it off, turn it on vibrate, turn it on do not disturb, do whatever you have to do to not look at it during the screening. We all paid a ticket to be here, we all want to watch the movie. Please be courteous to those around you. If you have to take a call, if you have to answer a text, lobby is right out there. You don't have to do it in here. So that being said, please sit back, relax, and remember, dark is the suede that mows like a harvest. If you don't know what it means now, you won't later. Please enjoy Tim Burton's Mars Attacks.
All right, we're gonna do this quick so I can turn the air back on because it's like 500 fucking degrees in here. I just came from a 35 millimeter screening of Mars Attacks at the Colonial Theater. It is currently Sunday. I was just there on Friday. Saw Grease 2 and Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, also in 35 millimeter, in 3D as well. Well, that one little part is in 3D. And so Mars Attacks is a movie that I've talked about before. I wore my Mars Attacks t-shirt. Went by myself this time, but I met up with my buddy Brian afterwards to go get some drinks and some fish tacos and stuff like that. So I did something I don't usually do because I knew I was going to see this. And I know that I've talked about it before, and I didn't want to repeat myself, and I also forgot what I've said in the past. So I went back and I watched the old channel. I don't do that, you know. It's hard to look at that stuff. It's hard to look at a time when I thought people were my friends, and then it turned out that that wasn't the case. You know, it's like watching, like, you know, there's videos online like top 5 photos taken before tragedy, you know, and it's like, oh shit, you never hear the one with your name on it. So that's one reason I don't go back and watch it. And the other one is I don't want to give them any fucking views, you know. There's a dude who's on Instagram who's always sending me like links to their stuff, and he's like, watch it, what's wrong with you? You pussy, you jealous? And I'm just like, No, I don't want to. Do the same thing. Send them my shit and ask them what they think, you know? And don't call me a fucking pussy for not watching. It's the same thing over there. I don't have any interest, you know? They don't have any interest in my stuff. I don't have any interest in their stuff. We're good. But I broke my rule. I went back and I watched the Mars Attacks video. So I was like, okay, what can I say here that I didn't say over there? Well, here, we're not going to do a movie review. This is just going to be my thoughts on seeing it again for the first time since we watched it over there, and that was going on like 3 years ago. And also how good it is to see it in 35 millimeter. There is something special about film that you don't get. The textures, the scratches, the real changes, all that kind of stuff. There is a tactile feeling of it. The sound channels don't always work properly, and there's a missplice or something like that. That adds to my experience because I'm a fucking nerd, and so I haven't seen this movie since then. I did do a like how I would reboot it or how I would do a sequel of it. That video is somewhere on this channel. But just my thoughts on going back on it. It was cool to see it in an audience with people who had never seen it before. You'll see in the little intro that I put in here that a lot of people raised their hands. They had never seen this movie before. I knew the cards when I was growing up. I was obsessed with them and Dinosaur Attacks cards. I'd fucking kill to get to do a Dinosaurs Attacks movie and just make it just as gory as as the card. Same thing with Mars Attacks. Even the sequel idea that I have would just be as gory as the cards were. The Topps cards. So yeah, I grew up loving it. I was so excited about this movie because of Ed Wood. I would say Tim Burton. I think the one thing you could say about this movie is just how Tim Burton-y it is. Like, I would say this has his fingerprints on it as much as, say, something like Edward Scissorhands or Pee-wee's Big Adventure. There's a lot of quirky, idiosyncratic stuff in this movie that you just wouldn't fly now. A studio would never go to a director like, oh yeah, go ahead, do weird shit like that, So those things struck me, and just how funny this movie is, and how ridiculous it is that they were able to get this crazy cast. You got Jack Nicholson playing two characters, and he looks like he's just chewing the scenery and having a good fucking time. And you have, you have a mixture of like talent. You've got, you've got Jack Nicholson, you've got Annette Bening, you've got Glenn Close. You have young talent like Jack Black, and you have Natalie Portman. You have guys who are still household names like Michael J. Fox. And you have the people who worked with like Sarah Jessica Parker coming in. But then you've got like, Pam Grier coming off of her nomination for Jackie Brown. You've got, you've got Jim Brown, you've got Jodan Baker. Like, you've got this mixture of A talent with like B movie staples. And that's what makes this movie so cool in my mind, and why, you don't get this kind of thing very often. It is an homage to the 50s B movie, but also like the 60s and 70s disaster movie. Like there's as much Harryhausen is in this, because it was originally supposed to be stop motion. I think he says that in the intro. There is an ode to the Towering Inferno and the Poseidon Adventure and Earthquake and shit like that. Movies where you have these big ensemble casts of A talent who are all brought together because of a thing, And I think that this one handles its material a lot better than Independence Day does, because Independence Day, it's played very straight. I think that movie would have benefited a little bit more from a wink and a nod, whereas this one is pure, unadulterated camp. Also, I still marvel at how fun, the design of the aliens, the Martians, is perfect. It's one of those things where it's like, I wouldn't touch that. That's perfect. They took the design from the cards and they turned it into something else, and something that's so fucking iconic, and little things like the weird shit on the ship, like them and their little silver bikini bottoms, and the way that the walkway of the ship comes out like a tongue. There's just all the spider legs that come out of the ship. There's all these like little Tim Burton-y things that feel so at home in a B movie. You know, when the aliens and the Martians inside the big robot suit with the dome helmet. You know, I love dome helmets. First off, it's just one of those things that people know about me is I fucking love dome helmets. This was like a great blend of the 50s sci-fi with 60s and 70s camp with that 70s disaster movie aesthetic, and does it all gel together? No, not really. I do like how long it takes. One thing I didn't remember was just how long it takes to get to the Martians, and that is so in keeping with, you know, a grindhouse exploitation movie. Is they only have so much money, so they gotta save the money for those things that they're selling it on, the exploitation elements of it. So there's going to be a lot of scenes of talking and all this kind of stuff. But only in this movie, the talking is with, you know, Danny DeVito and Glenn Close, and, you know, I love Annette Bening's like new age character sitting on top of her, you know, on top of her car with the crystals and the meditation pose and shit like that, or including Tom Jones. Like, there was always like a musical guest star in these movies or something that was added to it. You know, just to have that name on the poster. And here it's like, oh, it's Tom Jones, why not, you know? The aliens watching Dukes of Hazzard, or the Lawrence Welk show on it. There's all these little Tim Burton-y things, you know. Again, it goes into that kind of the unabashed imagination that was there before everything became Disney-fied, and he was just kind of on autopilot when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Yeah, man, I don't know, quick, concise. I've talked about this movie quite a few times before. I think it is one that I'm glad people discovered it, you know, and I'm glad, like, Spirit Halloween had a whole fucking Mars Attacks. They had the like 4 foot tall or 5 foot tall Martian decoration that makes sounds and all this kind of stuff. If I had an extra $500, I would get that thing. It's pretty fucking cool. But I don't know, yeah, just watching it with an audience and having a good chuckle at a lot of this, and just watching very serious, very, you know, dramatic actors getting to kind of play camp was a lot of fun. No, granted, Jack Nicholson came from the Roger Corman world. You know, Jack Nicholson was in, Little Shop of Horrors, the original one, and he wrote Head, the Monkees movie. So Roger Corman, you know, that world, that B-movie world, is where Jack Nicholson came from. So he's done that stuff. But, you know, you have like a, you know, Jim Brown and a Joe Don Baker. You know, Joe Don Baker from, like, you know, Final Justice from MVD. I did the commentary track on this movie along with the people from that other show. You know, he's known for Mitchell, Mystery Science Theater episode and stuff. But it's cool, like, you know, in that era, it was an era in the 90s where, like, I think Tarantino kind of made it cool to bring back a lot of these actors. And I'm glad that Tim Burton gave, like, a Joe Don Baker. You got Rob Steiger in the movie, too. Like, it's just, every time you think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, Pierce Brosnan's in the movie, you know? And, I don't know, it's a really, really fun movie. I feel like it was one draft away from being an absolute classic. You know, but I think for what we got, there is just so many little gags in the movie and things that I took for granted for a really long time. And I'm watching it today on the big screen and with other people, like noticing little subtle things. I just be like, oh, this is brilliant. This is so much fucking fun. So yeah, I don't know if you gauge this or not, but I'm a big fan of Mars Attacks. And I'm really excited that I got to see it on the big screen. I'm really excited I got a chance to see it in 35mm because, you know, I saw it when it came out. It came out around Christmas and it did not do well. I think he talked about that in the intro as well. I remember we saw it at the Atco Multiplex in South Jersey, in Atco, New Jersey, and there was nobody in that theater. We went to like a 3 o'clock in the afternoon because it was on Christmas holiday. And I remember we went with my friend Kevin Oros. His mom dropped us off at the theater. We used to just, like, that was our whole thing. The Marlton 8, the Atco Multiplex, our parents used to just drop us off, and, like, we would just either buy a bunch of tickets and see a bunch of different movies all in one day, or we would buy a ticket and then go fuck off somewhere else and go hang out or something. But like I remember on that one, we saw that one, and then we still had time, so we bought tickets again and saw it twice in one day. Did it for the couple movies, but I remember that one. It ended in one theater, and then we literally walked across the hall to the other side because they had this big ass framed, like massive Breakfast at Tiffany's poster in there. And I remember we just walked right across the hall and saw it again. Then my buddy, I was thinking about this as the movie was starting. They used to have like these bulk candy things where like you would buy like a bag and then you could fill up enough, and then they would weigh it and you would pay what it weighed. And I remember this dude spent like $30. Like his mom like gave him money, and he spent like all of it on fucking bulk candy of like gummy worms and shit like that. So that was the kind of dumb shit that we used to do when we were in middle school. You know, when other cool kids were like drinking probably and like having sex, we were seeing Mars Attacks twice in one day. But you know, I was just I don't know, I was enamored with the cards at the time. Leading up to it, you know, obviously being a massive Tim Burton fan, you know, he did Batman and Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice and Pee-wee's Big Adventure and all that kind of stuff. Like, there was a period of time where he was like my favorite director in the entire world, and I wanted to emulate that style. And you could see, like, as much as he was into the gothic, you could see that kind of camp aesthetic was always incredibly big with him as well, and the sci-fi camp stuff. You know, there's nods to Godzilla in this, and I love it in the movie where they just stop. They're using footage from Rapanui, and they're using footage from like a Japanese monster movie. I think it might have been Godzilla '85 that they're using in this movie. But then at one point they're also using footage from the '70s King Kong, where it's like the disaster footage of people running around. They just cut in the footage from these other movies. And that also works in the aesthetic of the B movie and of the Grindhouse movie, where, you know, they were reusing footage too. Like, that was a big thing. So I don't know. This is just a joyous little movie. It's not perfect. I've got a lot of issues with it. I think that some characters could have been better utilized. I think some characters could have, you know, I think we could have scaled back some parts on it. You know, and then I also was thinking about my friend Amanda. I texted her and I was like, "Have you ever seen Mars Attacks before?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "We should cosplay you as the Martian girl that Lisa Marie plays in this." Lisa Marie she was Tim Burton's ex. She played Vampire in Ed Wood, and because this girl literally has that body and can do her hair huge and stuff like that. And she's like, "Oh, we should do that." I was like, "I know, right?" If I ever get to make my sequel, Warner Brothers, call me. Yeah, it's a fun one, and it just makes me go home and want to watch Ed Wood again. Well, I am home now, but as I was out with Brian, I was like, I'm gonna go home. But actually, now what I want to do is I want to put the air on, because the cat's laying here like, fuck, dude, turn the air conditioner back on. So that's it. That's my little rant about Mars Attacks. Everything, their little canisters, the tanks they wear on their backs, and the sound that the helmet makes when Jim Brown is punching it, and the suit, just the design. I love the little flappy things on their faces, like when the Martian King is looking at Playboy and he looks over at Sarah Jessica Parker and she's in the silver bikini and his little things start flapping, like little things like that. You know, and I don't know, just weird little shit that Tim Burton put in it, which is it's campy, but it's also kind of naughty in places. The Martians are just total fucking dickheads, which I love. I love the Ack Ack sound they make. I genuinely enjoy this movie, and I'm glad that the people in the theater with us today also enjoyed it. So that's it. That's my ranting about Mars Attacks. All right, I'm gonna turn the air back on.